Welcome to the first episode of the Quip and Convo segment this year. Yes, my guest has been here several times, both in the Quip and Convo segment and the Quip Corner's Book Corner. So please join us as we talk about this month's fruit and a quip. See you in a bit. Welcome back to the Quip and Convo segment of the Quip Corner with Ada Stephen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I think, well, Ada, I love doing these with you. I
Yes,
really
I
do.
yes, and I enjoy every moment we spend together. So thank you for coming back. So as I said in my email, this year I've been led to do these in a slightly different way.
Hmm.
The theme the Lord gave me for this year is be fruitful. And so he then moved on to say, okay, so each month I talk about a different fruit and the
Hmm.
lessons we learn from that fruit and leverage a quip. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So of the ones I sent, of the options I sent to you, you picked the avocado and so I'll just read out, what you chose, the
Yep.
pair that you chose, which
Okay.
is some people love avocados, others can't stand them. And the lesson, from that is not everyone would like you, and that's okay. Be yourself anyway.
Yep.
So I'd like to read the quip from
Sure. That would
um,
be great. Thank you.
from my third book, Quip 27, which says, if you try to be everything to everyone, you'll be no one to yourself. If you try
What
to
is
be
that?
everything to everyone, you'll be no one to yourself. So, how would you tie those two things,
Oh my
or shall I say
goodness.
three things together?
There is, you and I could write a 150-page book about this. But well, the reason it jumped out at me so much though is I, I'm one of those people who doesn't like avocados.
Oh,
And
no, you are?
everyone
Well, I
in my
have one
family,
here.
I know, and everyone in my family loves them. I mean, loves them. And they're what are they? They're a superfood, and they're the best thing in the world for you. And I've tried the guacamole thing. I've tried everything. And
It didn't work for you.
and so when I saw it, I said, "Well, this is the one I got to talk about." And when you talk about trying to be everything to everyone,
Hmm.
I was just thinking about it over the last week or so, and I had it like in 3 to 4 different categories. Like there's the faith category, which I
Yes.
think is the most important one.
Hmm.
Uh, when I was in the corporate world as a leader, it was very important to be genuine and be yourself.
Yeah.
And then there's being yourself as a writer, um,
Okay.
and what that means. And
Hmm.
so, but on the faith side, which obviously, if you don't have that one going, the rest of it doesn't flow. I think it is if I think imitation's a big issue on the faith side, meaning there's certain things that other people can do evangelically or pastorally
Yeah.
or whatever you want, singing,
Hmm.
however you want to put it, giving a sermon that I can't do.
Yeah.
And if I try to, not only am I going to be ineffective in my role as an evangelist,
Yeah.
but I'm also going to be very ineffective enjoying my faith
Mm.
and enjoying what my faith brings to me. Now, I
Hmm.
say that, there's times in life when, someone's really sick or, you have an addict in your family or there's a divorce or something like that where um, your spiritual gifts and your faith, you just have to deal and do whatever role you have. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's very unpleasant times in life. But when you're not into that situation, I believe it's very, very important to be working in your, I don't want to say comfort zone because God's going to push us, right?
Yes.
But working to your strengths and who
Yeah.
you are
The giftings.
in your
Yeah.
faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I can give a really easy example of this
Yeah.
is I'm in a small group Bible study, and about a year ago, we were struggling with how can you be effectively evangelical? And no one in the room is the kind of person who you're going to walk by, seeing on a street corner, holding up the Bible and preaching, which
Mm-hmm.
that's not, I'm not criticizing that. I think people that do that have a tremendous amount of courage and
Yeah.
they're effective, but it doesn't fit us.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want me doing detailed Bible interpretation for you because I'm a very simplistic Bible reader.
Yeah.
And so I went out to coffee with a friend of mine he's a counselor and he's a pastor. And he said, speak from your own experience. He said, if you speak from your own experience, no one can argue with you.
Yeah. Yeah. The
They might
express
be
of yourself.
skeptical that that
Yeah.
actually happened,
Uh-huh.
but
Uh-huh.
they can't argue with you because you're just telling them about your
Your story.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, your story. And he says, you're being authentic when you do
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And I think to the times when haven't been comfortable in my faith, not times I've been pushed to do things, pushed by God to do
Mm-hmm.
things that are a stretch,
Yeah.
but they fit what the gifts I have.
Mm.
But I think of the times that I have been asked to do something that I really didn't fit. Where, like for instance, one time I was asked to chair the stewardship committee at my church,
Mm-hmm.
and I give. It's not That's not the issue. I don't have any issue with stewardship, but that's not where my strength lies
Yeah.
within the church community.
Yeah.
I can give you 3 minutes about why I give, but I'm not really good at sitting down with you and saying, this is why I think you should give, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I was miserable the whole time I was the chair of the stewardship committee. I hated it. And that's what I mean. So if you, in that situation, I was trying sorry, I'm closing my eyes because I'm thinking back to it, but I was
Yes.
trying to be something in my church
Mm-hmm.
that I wasn't specifically designed to be, and
Yeah.
I wasn't helping anyone. So that be no one to yourself.
Yeah.
Heck, I wasn't being anyone to anybody, let alone me, you know? And when I did that particular role.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a time in our church when we have in an Episcopal church, we have a vestry, and the
Mm-hmm.
head of the vestry is the warden. I was a senior warden during a pastor leadership transition, and that fit my personality.
Mm.
Um, because I'm like, yeah, will we okay? We're going to figure it out. What's the process? Let's work through it.
Yeah.
That type of thing. That fit my personality,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a push. It was a stretch. I mean, I was signing documents because we didn't have a priest that no lay senior warden should be
Yeah.
signing on behalf
Yeah.
of the church,
Yeah.
but someone had to, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, that's the difference, I think,
Mm-hmm.
in those things. And I say this like this is something I've always known,
Mm-hmm.
and it isn't. I had to learn that the most important thing is listening to what I believe I'm hearing about where I should be doing things
Yeah.
or how I should be acting or how I should be thinking
Mm-hmm.
or whatever and
Yeah.
being myself. And the most fascinating thing about this whole discussion, Ada, which I should have started with, is in my family when we were growing up, the tradition was I had me and my two brothers. When you graduated from high school, they gave you a pocket watch, those old time
Yes.
pocket watches.
Yes. Yeah.
And there was a specific inscription for everybody on the inside of the thing. And my parents on mine, they said, be yourself.
Ooh.
And I'm guessing it's because they thought I was enough and they saw my tendency at that time to try to be everything to everybody.
Oh.
Um, and so it took me a while, but that's why this quip resonated with me so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe I live it now. I don't believe I lived it when I was 35. How about that?
Mm.
I
Yeah,
was trying to be
yeah,
everything to everybody. And so it really resonated with me.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
anyways, I'm done with my monologue now. I'm sorry.
No, but it's interesting, just thinking about the pocket watch. And,
Mhm.
your parents were like, we see what we see, so
Yeah,
it's almost like let's put this peg in the ground,
yeah,
so that he doesn't, it's almost like a compass.
yeah. It was well, and I probably have said this before talking. My parents were like the genetic lottery as far as parents. They were just phenomenal, and they had a way of knowing their kids and who they were and what they needed. And like I mean, I gave it. My middle brother he is a model citizen, but in high school he had that wild streak. And when he was growing up, he had that wild streak, and my mother would keep him reined in, but she told me later she never wanted to break his spirit.
Mm,
Um, and that has served him well in life. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, my two brothers are the two people admire most in the world outside of my father. So, so they clearly either my judgment's really bad or they've developed into great human beings, right? So, and I'll let everyone out there decide which one those are.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And the thing
it is
about
fascinating.
being everything to everyone else is wherever you look, they're almost like models of you can do this, you can do that, and then there are people always going after these blings,
Mhm.
So one minute you're
Yeah,
trying to do this, the next minute you're trying to do that, and it's like, sometimes you don't know whether you're going or you're coming, you
right.
know. And it's interesting when you think about the avocado, how it stays true to
It
what it
does. And,
is, you know.
the funny thing about an avocado is that, like you say, not everyone likes them,
Hmm.
but there's no nuance to what an avocado is,
Yeah.
right? It is, and I mean, they're on everything now, right? Every time you get a sandwich, there's avocado, there's the guacamole, there's
Yeah.
the shredded avocado, and it's the perfect fruit for this analogy
Yeah.
because of the fact that, I mean, when you look at one, you're like, I mean, I'd have to be, I don't know, whatever, 1,000 years ago, whenever people figured out you can eat avocados, you'd have to be
Hmm.
really hungry to pick one of those things up and say,
Yeah.
this looks edible, right?
I know this looks attractive. Yeah.
I know. It's just bizarre. And it just it's so important that you're true to yourself
Hmm.
because I believe if you're not, then on a much grander scale, you're going to have a hard time aligning yourself with God's will for your time here.
True.
And and there is another block in there. Well, let me rephrase this. Yeah, I'm going to speak from my experience again.
Hmm.
From my experience, there's another block in there, which is ego. Um, because sometimes being yourself and understanding how you fit into something
Hmm.
may mean that it's behind the scenes, or you're not the top dog, or however you want to say it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
but you're happy doing it, so you have
Hmm.
to accept it.
Yeah.
My wife is the best person in the world at this. She
Hmm.
knows exactly where she wants to spend her time, and where she doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic because she's phenomenal at the things she does, and she
Hmm.
just says no to the things that she just doesn't think she's equipped for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Nice. Nice.
and
Okay.
it, and you want me to keep going for a second because I just had another
Yes.
thought.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
You really have to think about this over time.
Hmm.
And I'm speaking all this through a faith lens.
Yeah.
Um, you you have to figure out what your spiritual gifts are,
Hmm.
and you have to accept those. And I've spent a considerable amount of time in my life at war with my spiritual gifts.
Mm.
Um, my wife jokes about it. She says she's never seen anybody at war with their spiritual gifts as much as I am. Um, because sometimes it's leadership and sometimes it's administrative things.
Hmm.
And I kind of feel like I did that. I'm done with my career. I don't want to do that anymore. But that's where God needs me.
Mm,
And I have to accept that
yeah.
and do it. And once I accept it and do it, I'm happy doing it.
Nice.
But for a while, I wanted to be something else. I wanted to be I mean, I'm okay at pastoral care, but I wanted to be the guy who was sitting in the hospital bed while you drew your last breath, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that may not necessarily be what I'm gifted for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so you have to do that, understand your spiritual gifts, understand what makes me tick. When I say you, I mean me. I have to
Yes,
understand
I
what
know.
makes me tick. And there's a level of self-awareness there that is probably the most important component of this.
Yeah.
Is when I figured out how much ego was playing in my decision-making process. First off, it's kind of humiliating, right? I mean,
Mm,
to realize that I was thinking so much of myself. But
mm-hmm.
once if I, I'm a big journaler, so I would journal everything out and I'd put down all the reasons why I was struggling with something. And, then if I took all the ego things and put them on this side of the page, then I could make a clear decision.
It's left.
Um, and that was me not being myself when I'm letting
Mm,
ego drive me. Because that's not, I don't believe that's my role here, is
yeah,
to satisfy my ego. My role here is to satisfy God's will for me.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I don't know if I'm doing it or not, but I'm trying as hard as I can. You know?
I'm sure that's what God asked of us, right? It's
Right.
not to it's to do what He has put in our hearts and just keep following Him, one step after the other,
Yep.
one step after the other. When we
Well,
started, you
and
explained that you had three. So do you want to
oh
move
yeah,
on to,
yeah.
yeah?
Well, the leading one, being a leader, because I had corporate leadership roles and I
Yeah.
had the leadership role at the church. This was one I figured out pretty quickly.
Mm,
And you alluded to it a little bit at the beginning.
hmm.
If you, if one person's a really effective leader, it doesn't mean you can't be an effective leader, but you may not be doing it the same way that they do it.
Yeah.
And where a lot of leaders fail is they say, well, I want to be like person ABC,
Hmm.
Joe Smith over there.
Yeah.
And when instead they've got to be themselves and understand what makes them effective as a leader.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a really good example of me as a leader is I'm terrible at confrontation, awful at it. I'm better at it than I used to be, but I'm never going to be really good at it.
Mm,
And so I would always make sure that I had a person working with me who was good at that type of thing. And
mm,
I would even explain to that person, look, I'm not really good at this. Could you handle this part of the role? And they
yeah.
would say, sure, because I
Mm,
like that. And if I hadn't done that, I probably would have failed miserably as a leader because I never would have been able to get certain things across
so,
or,
yeah.
that kind of thing. And I think that I truly believe anyone who wants to can be a leader, but you have to be self-aware about what your weaknesses are. And you have to be yourself as a leader. And that
Yeah.
gets to the avocado thing, right?
Mm.
Okay, I'll bring it back to your fruit, all right? Let me see. What's a glory fruit? Oranges. I think oranges, they're a glory fruit, right? No scurvy, they're pretty, everyone makes juice out of them. You might follow an orange as leader, but you're an avocado. And you have to be an avocado
Yeah.
as a leader.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and or maybe you are an orange. If you're training up the next generation of leaders, you can't tell them they have to be an orange to be a leader. You
Ooh.
have to tell them these are the things you need to accomplish as a leader. How does
Yeah.
that fit your personality
Yeah.
or your skill
Yeah.
set or your
Yeah.
background?
Yeah.
Because background's a big part of leadership too.
Yes, for sure.
Um, it really is. I mean, I've worked with people who are angry all the time,
Hmm.
and even as leaders, and the reason is that something from when they were age 6 to 10 that just stopped their development in a certain way,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's not their fault. You know, that's just life. And so that's it's so important, I think, that not everyone's going to like your style as a leader.
Yeah.
but if you get results, they can't argue
Yeah.
with you as a leader. Um, so that was really what I was getting at there.
Hmm.
And the orange avocado, I like that. That's a good
Yeah.
analogy.
I like
I
that.
don't know if people agree that orange is the glamour fruit, but I was trying to think of what's a glamour?
That's all
Strawberries,
good.
blueberries. Um, and if you want me to keep going, I'll talk about it as a writer because
Sure.
I really learned this, not the hard way, but um, Stephen King, of all people,
Hmm.
wrote a book called On Writing. And in that book, he said, the most important thing as a writer is that you be yourself as a writer. He said, if you pick up a book and it says in the tradition of like Tom Clancy, he says, put the book down and pick up a Tom Clancy book. Um, he says, when you try to imitate other people, you're either retelling the same story over again, or you're
Yeah.
doing flat writing, or you're worse, you're retelling the same story worse than the person that you're trying to copy did.
Copy.
And if you had told me when I started my writing journey I was going to be writing Christian fiction, I would have laughed you off the
Hmm.
screen.
Hmm.
I really didn't even know. I mean, I vaguely knew there were faith-based books in the world, but I had no idea there was this,
World.
library. Yeah. And I think it's the fact that I accepted where God was leading me as a writer, um, instead of pushing back, helped me.
Hmm.
And the fact that I wrote what I wanted to write
Hmm.
helped me a lot. And then I worried about my audience. Um, yeah, I usually let my test readers help me with the audience side of it. And I actually do, on a couple of workshops I do for writing, and I think this is true of all writers, but I'm talking to faith-based writers in these workshops, is you've got to be willing as a writer. I'm talking to writers here when I say
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you've got to be willing to reach into your heart and put yourself on the page.
Mm.
Um, I mean, even if you're writing, Hallmark type romance novels that are Christian based,
Yeah.
there's always conflict, right? So you've got to somehow draw on your own experience of what you've seen and be real with that. So it's
Hmm.
authentic to the reader. And that's what I mean by, and that's a fascinating thing because that really gets to the avocado
Yeah.
because not everyone's going to like an avocado, but in writing terms, I'm producing an avocado.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's fruitful for some people and it's
Yeah.
not fruitful for others.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going on, but I'll go one step further with that is uh, beginning writers will ask for a tip, and I'll always say, write. I'm speaking of fiction writers here, but it's true of nonfiction writers too. Write the book you want to write, that you want to write, because there's no writer in the history of the world who everybody likes. So you've got to make sure that you like your work and are satisfied with it. Because if you're not satisfied it and someone else is, you're going to be miserable about it.
Yeah.
And so that was the thing that really struck me with the if you try to be everything to everyone, you will be no one to yourself.
Hmm.
I would hate to think I went through 18 months and 72,000 words, and I didn't feel I was being authentic to what I wanted to tell people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or as a parent, I'd hate to think I went through, I mean, I know parenting is forever, but 18 years and I wasn't who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I wasn't authentic with my children.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, my kids will know, they'll tell you they know who I am, because I'm a dad, dad jokes and all that garbage, but, you know, I'm a dad to my core, but
Yeah.
I don't think they would argue that I wouldn't think they'd ever say I was inauthentic with them.
Mm.
So,
Right.
and that's why this thing, I mean, when I read the quip when you emailed, Mike, I went like that. I really want to talk about this. And I don't know if I'm covering it the way you want or not, but this is what you stirred in me. Um,
Well, that's all I need. I need you not to be anybody else but yourself
yeah, well, there
sharing.
we go, right? And
But
And
thank you so much. I like the fact that you took the quip and you said, if we look at it on this angle, this angle, this
mm,
angle, and yeah, well, thank you. Thank
well,
you. I
thank you. Are
appreciate it.
you kidding? And this is a pleasure. And I want to read something, if I can, from 1
Yes,
Peter.
please. Go ahead.
Um, in 1 Peter, it's make sure I get this right. Chapter 3, verses 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
This to me is so beautiful, and I wish this had resonated with me when I was like 16 years old, you know.
Mm,
And I wish we'd read it to every middle school girl in the country, and then and they would embrace it. But your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as braided hair and the wearing of gold jewelry and fine clothes. Instead, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight.
mm,
And I just thought that is so beautiful.
yeah,
And that gentle and quiet spirit, I believe, is what leads you in a way that you are authentic to yourself and who you are
yeah,
and what you are.
mm,
So I thought that was such a beautiful 2 verses that I wanted
yeah.
to make sure I read them today when I was with you.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
thank you.
And that's wonderful because, you know, the book I'm reading the quip from
Mhm.
is for teens, tweens, and 20s. So it's a
Ah,
book for the
okay.
young ones. So
It's
this is
perfect.
just, yeah, that's just God.
Well, and it is, God, those years are so brutal, aren't they? They're just absolutely brutal. Yeah. And it can, I think it's worse than it used to be
Mm.
in this
Social
culture. I
media,
believe
yes,
it's
I
worse than it
agree.
used to be
Yeah,
because of these things. You
yeah,
know,
the devices, the social media,
yeah,
all that. Yeah,
the people can say whatever they want on there,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's absolutely vicious.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, thank you
but
again.
thank
Yes, I
you. I
really
appreciate it.
appreciate this. Yes, thank you. You take care.
You take care. Bye bye.
I will. Bye now. All right. Well, thank you. We're done.
Was that
Yes.
okay?
Yes, it was. It was.
Okay.
You were being yourself, and that's all that matters.
Well, your stuff is just, your stuff is so thought-provoking. I'm like, I'm afraid to like read another quip because I'll spend like a week thinking about it. And, you know,
Not to worry, I'll send you another batch for the next,
yeah,
in another
yeah,
couple of months, I'll send you another
yeah.
set.
Well, anytime I'm willing to come on. I love speaking with you. And,
Yeah.
I have to do a blog post next week for the American Christian fiction writers. I might even reference your book in there and talk about how important it is to be yourself. I got to make sure I haven't done that already, but if not, I'm going to do it. And
Well, thank you. And I'd love to
so,
see, I mean,
yeah,
if it's something you can
yeah,
share with me, I'd love to read it. If you decide
yeah.
to, that's fine. But I
Well, and then
appreciate
there's oh no, I can share it. And then, there's that famous Oscar Wilde quote, right? Be
it. Hmm.
yourself, everyone else is taken. So,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes, yes, yes. True.
And it's actually I have a workshop, 10 tips for beginning writers, and be yourself is the first tip.
Nice.
Um, so you
Yeah.
really resonated with me.
Well, thank you.
So
I
anyways, thank
appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Yeah, thank you. And I met Andy. He said he met you at a workshop and you asked him, yeah, Andrew Roth.
Oh
He
yeah.
said he
Oh
had
yeah.
met you and then he reached out to me. So it was good to have him. So I'm just
Did he come on?
finalizing my videos for April. But yeah, he's
Oh,
gonna be
he's a
one.
great guy.
Yes, he is. He is.
I mean, we met at a publisher thing, and he's just the greatest thing.
Yeah, that's what he said.
And his
Okay.
books are really good too. His
Yeah,
books are very enjoyable. So,
nice. That's good to know.
right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you. Take
Thanks
care.
again. Have a good one.
You too. See you later.
Bye. I'm laughing because who would have known that Stephen doesn't like avocados? Well, in my family, it's not everyone that likes avocados, so I can totally relate with that. But lots of nuggets about the importance of being yourself. Whether or not you like avocados, I'd love to read your comments on this video. And you take care. God bless you. Bye now.